Hello everyone, this is Farha Noor. In this video, we are going to talk about mitochondria, which we also called as powerhouse of the cell. So if you want to know more about mitochondria, then stay tuned, watch this lecture. Now let's get started. Just as how I last time we tried linking cells and cancer together, now this time let's discuss something about skin cells. As we all must have heard that snakes shed their skin, which means they can rid of their old skin. So have you all wondered if this happens in humans? Yes, it does happen, but in a different way. You means skin is an amazing organ which acts as a protective layer to the human body. So as you can see here, this skin is made up of many layers. The bottommost layer is a new cells are formed where it receives nutrients and oxygen from the blood. These new skin cells gradually push their way to the top. When they reach to the top, they die and worn out by the environment and your daily activities. And these dead cells break away from the top layer and fall off, making room for a new cells growing up from below. But all this doesn't happen overnight, right? It takes roughly 1 month for new cells to get all the way to the top layer. So in a daily basis, an average size human shed 30 to 40,000 skin cells an hour. And over a period of 24 hours, you lose almost a millions of skin cells. So let's don't worry, as now we know the new cells are being formed in the bottom layer of our skin. After this little piece of information, now let's move on our topic on cell organelles. Imagine that you have just purchased a new mobile phone. Despite all your efforts, you fail to switch it on. But then you suddenly realize that you haven't inserted the battery in the phone. So this tells us that the phone will function only it contains the battery, which is its powerhouse. So in a similar way, the cell requires the energy to perform its functions, and this energy obtained from a special organelles and present within the cell. According to its appearance, it has varying shape, like rod, cylindrical and thread-like structure, but looks like granules in the cells. This reason it is rightly named as mitochondria, and it is also called as powerhouse of the cell. Now coming to the discovery of mitochondria. Mitochondria, mito means thread and chondrion means granules. As we all know, it is found in the cytoplasm of the cell. Mitochondria first observed by Richard Altman in 1894 and it was coined by Carl Benz in 1898. Mitochondria are organelles typically ranging in size from 0.5 micrometer to 1 micrometer in length, found in the cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells. And the main function of this organelle is producing energy for the cell. But before that, let's get familiar with its structure in more detail. As you can see here, it is made up of double membrane or a covering. Here, let's pause and try remembering. If you discussed any other cell organelle that has a double cell membrane, yeah, that's right, it is the nucleus. Same in the case of mitochondria. As we previously mentioned, mitochondria contain two major membranes, that is the outer membrane and the inner membrane. The outer mitochondrial membrane fully surrounds the inner membrane with a small intermembrane space in between. Mitochondria has an outer membrane which has tiny pores for transfer of substances in and out of the cells. Or we can say that the outer mitochondrial membrane has many protein base pores that are big enough to allow the passage of ions and molecules as large as the small proteins. And the inner mitochondrial membrane is the mitochondrial membrane which separates the mitochondrial matrix from the intermembrane space. The inner layer has folds called cristae which increase the surface area of the inner membrane. The area surrounded by the folds is called the mitochondrial matrix. The cristae and the matrix have different roles in cellular respiration. The inner membrane, which is extensively folded with the motive of increasing the length of its boundary. But why does it need more length? Let me give you a simple example. Imagine that you have a circular field and you ask to grow crops on inner boundary or circumference, the number of crops that can be planted will be limited. But if you plant crops in a crisscross or a twisted manner along its boundary, then the number of crops planted will be more. In this case, thus the quantity of grains obtained will be more in a later case. So, coming back to the mitochondria which produces energy because of the some particles on the inner membrane, and the reason for increasing the surface area of the inner membrane is to accommodate more number of such particles, and these particles are called as F1 particles. So, more the number of particles, more will be the energy produced. But you must wondering, how does this organelle produce energy? So let me tell you all, the food you eat which contains carbohydrates and fats are taken along with the oxygen you breathe to produce the required energy, which is in the form of ATP. Hence ATP is called energy currency of the cell. Now here one question arises, what is ATP? ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, or ATP is the principal molecule for storing and transferring energy in cells, and it is often referred to as the energy currency of the cell, and it can also be considered as the universal energy currency for metabolism and can be compared to storing money in a bank. Here one more question is also arises, why do all organisms need ATP? ATP is an important source of energy for biological processes. Energy is transferred from molecules such as glucose to an intermediate energy source, that is ATP. ATP is a reservoir of potential chemical energy and acts as a common intermediate in metabolism, linking energy requiring and energy yielding reactions. So, scientifically, we say that whatever work we do in a day-to-day our life, we use up the ATP from the cells to carry out that work. In a mitochondria, it's not only the membrane that is similar to the nucleus. Just like how the nucleus contains DNA, the mitochondria too has its own DNA. It is also somewhat similar to the endoplasmic reticulum, which we have already discussed previously. The ribosomes particles attached on the rough endoplasmic reticulum which makes protein is also present inside the mitochondria. So, the mitochondria is the only organelle which makes its own proteins into its requirements. So that's all about mitochondria, which we also called it powerhouse of the cell. I hope you understand all about it. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and please subscribe our channel to get more videos like that. Thank you. Bye bye.